Hi, Mary. How are you?
Good morning, Leslie.
Thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me about Many Hands Organic Farm.
My pleasure.
And so, how long have you been purchasing from Many Hands?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I can't actually remember when it started, but probably early 2000s, because I moved to Massachusetts in 2005, and it probably was a couple years later that Julie and the farm did did a trial of CSA with the Kennedy Community Health Center, which at that time was known as Great Brook Valley Health Center,
Oh, okay.
and I was the director of behavioral health, mental health at that time. So since then,
Oh, wow. And
a
then you
long
started
time.
doing it on your own away from
Yes,
that.
yes, yeah.
How
It wasn't.
long how long did she do it at
It
that
was
center?
it was very brief and not terribly successful for a couple of reasons, which one of which was beyond her control, which was it
Hmm.
was not a good farm year that year, at least at the
Yeah.
beginning. The weather was not cooperative. Um, and the second thing, which probably helped later, particularly with the farms associations to food sufficiency efforts in Worcester, at least,
Hmm.
was that the members who had signed up had a lot of difficulty figuring out what to do with the food because it looked different than what they would buy in a supermarket, even if it was
Uh-huh.
the same stuff. So,
That can often be an issue even nowadays. We do have a lot of herbs that people aren't familiar with. I'd say it's more with the herbs that they don't know, and more and lots of greens that are, not what you get
or,
in the supermarket.
yeah,
Sometimes.
or that people eat necessarily their diets have included a lot of. So sometimes people, at least during that initial period where, well, I really should be eating more healthy and this will be good. And, kind of thinking the decision was going to make it an automatic process. And of course, it doesn't work that way.
Right, absolutely. What specifically do you buy from Many Hands?
What
In
the
other words, just the CSA or?
the 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 vegetable CSA, as well as some of the meat share,
Oh,
um,
okay.
as well as the eggs.
So you do eggs weekly?
Um, well, no, during this particular period, I'm
Okay.
doing it, well, it's every other week, so that's what I'm going with.
Right,
And
right.
prior to a couple years ago, I was sharing an eggs every week with someone since
Uh-huh.
I am the single consumer of my share.
Okay,
So,
in the summer, what you're
yeah,
saying is
if it
a whole
yeah.
dozen is too much.
It is. So I am hopeful that Julie will consider doing, what she's doing now, which is every other week, if that's not too confusing for packing up shares. I realize it might be.
I'll mention that to her and have it, we're always looking for new things to improve on.
Yeah.
And the egg share has turned out over the winter to be more successful than we thought. I don't know if that's just because eggs are hard to get in the grocery store.
Well,
And the prices are not, now the price difference isn't as great.
no, it isn't. And actually the egg share started before the news was big on the difficulty with eggs. So
Eggs
yeah,
and all the
so I think
stores
it
are
was
start.
by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is she now has, I will talk to her about, and I don't know what we'll end up doing, but she now has half carton shares. Well, she doesn't have shares in half cartons, but she bought a bunch of half cartons because when we donate to the fridges,
Yeah, that's what you
we
put in.
donate in 6 egg cartons. So maybe that would be an
That would be,
option.
yeah, and certainly if the amount of chickens can support that, um,
Right, in the summer, yeah.
yeah, I think that would certainly be something that at least some members. I'm not the only single.
Right, you're not. And that might be an option. We are, like I said, we're always discussing new ways to do things and improve. And
Sure,
there's a couple of options there of either every other week or half a dozen every week.
sure.
I'm just kind of thinking about the logistics of packing the shares, and there's all
Right.
that goes into everything.
Right.
Do we remember this is a week that everybody gets eggs but
Exactly.
doesn't?
It
Yeah.
doesn't, yes, precisely. I
It
appreciate that.
gets complicated, especially with three different share sizes as well.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so that's something, thank you for bringing that up, and we can, talk about it and maybe make that work during the
Mhm.
summer session.
Yeah.
Um, and you buy chicken, you said?
Yeah, usually. Last year was the first year I missed the meet because I unexpectedly have surgery in July, so that totally knocked off my schedule.
Hmm. And
But
when you buy
I plan on,
chickens, do you freeze them whole or do you cut them up and
I freeze them whole
you freeze them whole? And then with just one of you, you eat the whole chicken?
over the course of the week. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually usually cut them up in pieces and freeze them.
Yeah.
But it is, it's a process and we kind of have it down to a science and we can do it in, a couple hours in the afternoon,
Yeah.
depending on how many chickens we buy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's, because you do get them fresh. I mean, they literally were
Right.
just
Right.
butchered that day or the day before.
Right.
Um, which makes it nice because you have that option. Because so many other places you buy the chickens and they're already frozen, and if you don't want a whole chicken, you're stuck with it.
Sure.
Um, so what keeps you coming back year after year?
Um, Clearly the assurance of good quality from, seeds to harvest.
We work on that, always trying to improve.
Yep.
Um, have you ever done another CSA? Is this the only one you've ever done in your life?
No, this is actually the first CSA I was only a member of. I started a food co-op when I lived in New Jersey and ran it for a number of years, and then moved to Massachusetts, so clearly stopped. And then
Uh-huh.
actually, I ran two food co-ops in New Jersey because I lived in North Jersey and ran one, and then I moved to South Jersey and ran one for a while. So certainly was not going to do that again when I moved to Massachusetts. Plus, things had really changed when I started a food co-op in the 70s.
Hmm.
Um, there was one natural food supplier that came, and our order was actually it was a tractor trailer full. It was as big as what was going to the natural food stores because there were so few of them.
Uh-huh.
So so it's nice to just be a member. I kind of got I don't want to say strong armed into,
Uh-huh.
a board position, but certainly I'm a pretty big supporter of, grow local, feed local.
Uh-huh. Are you involved in that in other ways besides many hands?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. But when you were in New Jersey, you were,
Yeah.
is when you, um, yeah, it's a lot easier. I mean, there's so many more farms now too that people are aware of and can buy locally. Not so many organic though. Not that is,
No, we on the East Coast are very lagging in that, sadly.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, why choose a CSA when choice is less than at Whole Foods or the farmer's market? In other words, why would you do a CSA when you don't have as much choice of what you get versus going to the grocery store?
For a couple of reasons. One reason is that while there's certainly some security in the label of organic, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot more hands that that produce, for instance, passes through, even
Mm-hmm.
from an organic farm to market, whereas a local CSA, is much the 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 production chain is much shorter. So,
Very true.
so,
Mm-hmm.
and I have much more specific knowledge of what's being done in terms of, soil maintenance, etc. Even though like literally, it's not eyes on. Like I'm not watching what Julie and her team does. Um, but I have a lot of confidence that what she says she's doing is what she's doing. So that's one
Right.
reason. The other reason is that as lovely as it is to have food that here is out of season, and I will certainly confess I'm not a purist in this.
Hmm.
I'll
None
buy.
of us are.
No, none of us are really. Like, I will certainly eat avocados occasionally and oranges, even though I don't think Massachusetts has ever grown an orange.
Probably not.
Probably not. Um, but the bulk, I believe, of food production, the closer to home it is, the better it is. And there's the whole idea of seasonal, which is
Right.
also pretty influential in my diet.
So what in the winter, what do you tend to eat vegetable wise?
Um, I'll certainly go with root vegetables, which are you know commonly um, available, but I will put up at least half of the produce that I get every year in the summer.
Oh,
So
so
I'll
you're
so
doing
I'll
some
blanch,
preservate. You
yeah, yeah. So I'll
okay?
blanch and freeze a lot of the greens because even a smaller share is still a lot of greens for one person in a week.
True, true. We're going to be a little less heavy on the greens this coming summer. I
Yeah,
think her plan is to do two greens a week instead of three
yeah.
and fill in with other things. We'll see what happens. We'll see what grows well. I mean, I've
That's
been there
maybe it.
4 seasons so far, and just the difference from season to season
Yeah,
in how things grow. When we do the same thing,
right.
there's just
It's
so
still
much,
yeah, it's still up to Mother Nature.
yeah. Um, so anyway, that will be interesting this summer.
Hmm.
How important is our focus on fertility, diversity, and carbon sequestration to you?
Um, it is not unimportant. It's not an issue I actually do much following on,
Mhm.
um, and particularly since the whole data collection process for sequestering, at least more globally, is kind of um, not as I don't have as much confidence in what always gets reported.
Mhm.
So it's not unimportant, but frankly, from my perspective, for me, what's more important is what are you literally doing to maintain the soil, and how are you literally planting and keeping plants healthy?
And I'm sure you can see from our newsletters that that is very important to Julie. She's
Yes.
always working on that,
Yes.
um, and improving that. And just, if you look back at their history and read their book or whatever, or have come to any of the workshops they've done when they've talked about their history,
Hmm.
they picked this land based on what was, the health of the land, and it wasn't ideal. I mean, it wasn't the perfect land out there, and over the years they have improved it
Yeah.
immensely, and they're
Yeah.
constantly, it's a process. And when they went no-till, I think 14 years ago, and
Hmm.
it's always something she's working on, and she works with several companies that help with the fertility of helping her maintain the fertility of the soil and the plants. And
Hmm.
it's always been something that I know most of our CSA members just assume, or aren't into it, but know that she's taking care of that.
Yeah, that's and frankly, that's where I am about it. I don't. While I do a lot of gardening on the small plot of land that my house sits on,
Hmm.
I am reliant on Julie, and Jack,
Right,
previously when he was more active, to pay attention to all that stuff and do what made sense.
right. I mean, I'm afraid to grow on my plot of land that I live on because for years, not knowing any better, we had all kinds of nasty chemicals to make our lawn look pretty.
Oh,
And
well, we were spared that because first of all, a lawn is actually has never been that important to me. And second
uh
of all, we have, green stuff, but I would not categorize it as grass. And there has certainly been virtually nothing done to it except mowed every summer. So,
Yeah, we several years ago stopped putting all that stuff down, but I don't know how long it takes to clean out of the soil.
Well, not overnight, that's for sure.
Right, right. And so I have Julie, so I don't have to do it here.
Yeah.
Um, do you think there's a clear quality difference with the food that you get from Many Hands versus, other farms, the grocery store, other organic places?
Um, that would really be hard for me to judge, I think, because I have not, you know, been a member of other CSAs in this area, so,
Okay.
I
What
don't.
about against the grocery store?
Um, certainly, I don't know that. I think what I would say is I don't know that I could pick out Julie's produce from Whole Foods produce, for instance. There's
Hmm.
certainly um, that I have looked at in all the supermarkets around, and there are some supermarkets that I will absolutely not buy produce in under any condition,
Hmm.
except perhaps starvation, and they were the only ones that had some. That would certainly change my mind. I don't know that I could pick Julie's out, but then again, I can speak to the life's history of the produce she provides, and I can't do that to what Whole Foods brings.
Right. And you don't know
So I
how long
don't,
it's,
yeah,
right.
and I don't I don't want to imply that I mistrust them, Whole Foods, I mean, but the fact is I just don't know.
Right.
And you know, Barry is 40 minutes driving from where I live, and even the local producers that Whole Foods deals with, which good for them, they're doing something about it.
Right.
Um, they're still not 40 minutes away.
Right. Yeah, I do. I notice when I'm in there, someone says locally farmed and it's like Pennsylvania. I'm like, well, that's not
Yeah,
local. That
no,
doesn't count as
it's
local.
it's you know, I mean, it's better than Argent. It's certainly closer than Argentina
True.
or
True.
Chile.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is to me that is a difference.
Yes. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the farm that you love or like to see changed or whatever? That,
Well, I certainly very much agree with and support, even though I don't participate in it, with the efforts that the farm makes in terms of providing training and information for being, having a community focus. I think
hmm.
that is actually to me a very important piece of this. Um, I've had a lot of contact over the years because of what I do for a living. Um,
Which is
I'm a I'm in the behavioral health field, so I'm a therapist and
okay.
see clients. But for almost 20 years, I was the director of behavioral health services at the community health center,
Okay.
and then another community health center out in Western Mass for a couple of years before I retired. So I've come into contact with a lot of people who have legitimately have food insufficiency, which is not a terrific thing. So, kind of messes up one's ability to do much else in life except work at being able to, you know, feed oneself and one's family.
Hmm.
So the fact that the the farm also supports the
Worcester
community
fridges.
Worcester fridges is actually really important. And um, if I'm away during the summer, I'll cancel my share. But I
Hmm.
love it that I don't have to just cancel it. I can say, send it along with the donations. So that piece to me is very important. Right
Yeah.
under feeding myself. Feeding myself is the top of the list.
Um, yeah, when I started, I don't know that we were doing as much with the fridges as we are
No,
now.
that's really picked up a lot.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we've gotten great donations and, we pack up, I think 16 shares every week.
yeah, a pretty substantive amount, which
Yeah. And it gets
and
split up over four different fridges in Worcester. And they have a whole system of we drop it off in one location
and
and
they send it around.
they send it around and
Yeah, those fridges are not only well stocked, but they are well used by people.
there's one in Shrewsbury I just found out about. I live in Shrewsbury and I just found out this year
Oh,
that there's
probably
actually
had one.
one right by the senior center. and people can just donate and put stuff in there.
Yeah, well, that's true also for Worcester. Like my family
Right.
supports that as well. We'll leave stuff there, leave food there.
That's nice. Anything else oh, so if we had one more question. If you were talking to someone new who was thinking about signing up, what would you say to them to encourage them?
Um, I would, I would certainly first start by asking them, you know, how much, how many vegetables are they already eating?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of varieties. And depending on that, if they were brand new to the whole idea of, organic and all, I would certainly encourage them to start small. Um, and these days, like in the 70s, there was virtually no information. Well, there was no internet, of course, and there
Right,
was
right.
virtually no information about this kind of stuff. Whereas now it's easy to get,
True.
information about this is, here's a picture of the vegetable, here's what you do with it, here's some recipes you can use it in. So I'd really encourage people to be very curious, um, and seek out that information, not figure that they had to just kind of figure it out on their own or just ask their friends who
Right,
also
right.
may not be.
We are trying to put up a section on the website with pictures of our specific
Yeah,
um, vegetables, the way we package it, how it would show up in your
yeah.
share. Things don't always look exactly the same as what you see in the grocery store, and there are different
No,
varieties of herbs
oh,
and things.
yeah, especially the variety of herbs. That one would probably, I agree with you, be the hardest for people to recognize,
Right,
because people are more used to using herbs dried than I think fresh.
fresh. And when you Google something like that, the pictures you come up may be a totally different variety of that herb
Right.
or green, and it doesn't look the same, and you're a little confused. So we're working on doing that.
Yeah,
um, to help people. And
sure.
Julie's been writing in the newsletter every week about, I think, two different uh, items that we grow and information, not so much cooking information, but health information and what it is and what family it's from.
Yeah.
And we're adding some more cooking things. But I know, honestly, when I started, there were definitely more greens than I was exposed to in the grocery store. And
Hmm.
I just kind of learned pretty much from being at the farm. I started as a volunteer
Hmm.
and I would watch how Julie cooked everything. And you know what? You could just cut everything up and saute it all together, and it always tastes great and a little bit different every time.
Hmm. Yeah,
And if you don't know what to do with it, just do that and you're good to go.
sure.
I find that's an easy way. You don't have to be fancy about it.
Don't have to be fancy. In fact, fancy is really not as healthy generally.
Right, right. And especially too, if you don't get enough of one item to feed everybody,
Sure.
or you just mix a whole bunch of items together and
Hmm.
you have enough.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, well, thank you very much, Mary. It was been a pleasure to speak with you. We've had a lot of great ideas and things to say, and look forward to packing your shares this summer because I will be doing that.
All right. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.